This week on Hot Reads, we ask the question, are the Chicago Bears for real? And just how impressed with Cam Newton is another former #1 overall pick, Troy Aikman. And welcome back into Hot Reads. I'm Tom Vandervoort, sitting with Hall of Fame quarterback Troy Aikman. And Troy, we get to week 2 of the regular season. I believe you are headed to New Orleans, where the Bears play the Saints.
Yeah, I like the Bears. For whatever reason, I think that going into this season, they were a team that not a lot of people really talked about. In fact, they didn't even talk about them within their own division. They talked about the Packers and then the Detroit Lions coming on, and I like both of those teams as well. But the Bears certainly impressed me last week. I still believe the Falcons are a good team, but the way that they handled them at home, I thought was an impressive victory. And that's why I say right now, we're still kind of sorting out really what teams are going to be, and we'll get a much better idea about the Chicago Bears team traveling to New Orleans and playing against what I think is a pretty good team in the Saints. But the Bears defensively, they're doing the things that they've always done really under Lovie Smith. They're not real complicated. They don't give all the different looks that we see from so many defenses right now. But it's hard to match up against the Saints offense. Now, having said that, the Saints will be without Marcus Colston this week with a broken collarbone, and they're hoping that they get Lance Moore back. Without those two players, it certainly will be a lot easier for the Bears.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the Saints side of the ball, I think the game against the Packers was almost what a lot of us expected, a pretty high-scoring affair. Furious rally by the Saints at the end. They came up a little bit short. But one thing it seemed to a lot of us was that they got pushed around a bit at the line of scrimmage in the middle of that line. Are they really a physical enough football team to stick with the Packers and the Eagles and the Bears in the NFC?
Well, I think if you look at whenever you say is a team physical enough, then as you mentioned, you're typically talking about the offensive and defensive lines. And nobody wants to be called a soft team or a team that's not physical. And I think if you look at the styles of coaching, both by Sean Payton on the offensive side of the ball, as well as Greg Williams on the defensive side of the ball, they want to be aggressive, they want to be physical. Offensively, it's hard to look at Carl Nix at left guard, Olin Kreutz at center, or Jari Evans at right guard and not think of that group as a physical group. I think the question becomes, how physical and how tough up front is the Saints defensive line, and time will tell. It was a tough outing for the Saints defensively. You go back to last year in the playoff game against Seattle, that was a tough outing against them. There's some pressure on this defense this week to go out and have a heck of a game, and I expect that they will.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about your neck of the woods down there in Dallas, and Tony Romo, the quarterback, always, as you know better than anybody, a big focus of the Dallas Cowboys and their massive fan base. And Romo looked great for about 3.5 quarters against the Jets. A bit of a meltdown at the end of the game with a costly fumble and interception. We know fans are going to question this guy no matter what, but how does that kind of performance play with his teammates when you have a rough game like that?
Well, it's speaking from experience, it's hard when you have a game like that to then go back into that locker room when you feel like you've let everyone in the locker room down. But as far as how do the guys in the locker room respond to that, the teammates, they get a chance to see players much more obviously than what we do when we only see them on game day. They see the way that they prepare during the week. They see the way that they practice when they're out on the practice field during the week. And oftentimes the players have a much better appreciation for a player, in this case for a quarterback like Tony Romo, than what a lot of fans or certainly what a lot of media would. I think Tony's an excellent player. I really do. And he's got some abilities and some playmaking abilities that a lot of players just do not have in this league. And I think the notion that he doesn't like pressure situations, I think is false. All anyone cares about is what happens to the Cowboys and how he plays really when he gets into January, if they're even able to make the playoffs. But to have a game like last week and then lose, for some fans, they perceive him as a guy who has not played well in crunch time. And I would say that at times he has not, but they haven't given him the credit that he probably deserves for the times when he has played well.
Now, I know you can relate to being the Cowboys quarterback. You can also relate to being the first pick in the draft, coming to a team that had a lot of holes, and that's the position Cam Newton finds himself in. Now, I had to do this. I had to go back and look at your first game in '89 down in New Orleans, I think, as it turns out. And so I have to ask you, what did you think about 422 yards, 65% completions, 2 touchdowns from Cam Newton in his first game, his first start, week 1 of his NFL career?
Well, as you found out, Tom, my first game was not Newton-esque. I was shocked. I mean, I've talked about it, and having missed the offseason and not having had an opportunity to work on some things that most quarterbacks would, I felt would really affect him. I would never have imagined him going out and having the game that he had. Good for him. It's pretty exciting. I know that the Carolina Panthers have got to be excited, and all their fans. And hey, humility's only a week away, and they've got their hands full this week. Against the Packers. If he does that against the Packers this week, I'm going to go ahead and cast a ballot for him for the Hall of Fame.
All right, man. Well, thank you. Appreciate your time today, and don't eat too much down there in New Orleans.
All right, Tom. Thanks, buddy.